If you're posting consistently and your inquiry form is empty most weeks, the problem is almost never what you think it is. It's not the format of content, it's not the frequency, it's not the quality of the content, the lighting, the editing style. 9 times out of 10, it's the fact that the content is not built on a precise enough understanding of who you actually help. And if your message is broad and disparate, you're never going to stand out to the people you can best serve. And it really is a lack of clarity which leads to a lack of inquiries. And without that understanding and foundation in place, everything you build from that moment onwards, whether it's posting a post, a reel, or sharing a client result, it lands in the wrong place. Or worst case scenario, it doesn't land at all with anyone. And in this video, I want to share the 4 main reasons why that happens and also how to fix it. So when you turn up and you put energy into posting content, it not only gets views, it also generates inquiries and works. And out of the 450 plus coaches I've helped to date, every single one has benefited and every single one has seen an increase in inquiry rate by incorporating this understanding. And if you want to actually action this, I put a free strategy guide in the description below that gives you steps and specifics building upon what you're going to learn here. But the first thing you need to do is you need to reframe how you think about your service, because coaches blend into the background of every other Tom, Dick and Harry coach because they look the same and they sound the same. Where if you take a moment to just realize that, look at your service as taking someone through a journey and specializing in meeting someone at point A and point B. And that's it. Your service is a transition of change. And knowing your remit and where you operate that change gives you the edge for your content to stand out and actually attract people to sign up and pay for your help. Because without this, like I said earlier, when you're posting reels, posts, client results, it's like stacking cards without this bottom layer. You're literally just trying to stack on thin air, and they're not building, it's not scaling, it's not compounding up over time and doing its job to attract the people, but also push the people over the action threshold to inquire because it's so disparate. So I use the solar system analogy a lot because it's a very simple and clear way to look at the fitness industry. On the outskirts, people have no understanding or they have no investment. They think the hairy bikers, they think celebrity chefs are going to be the one. They think some random advert they see online about creatine gummies, that's what they need. Raspberry ketones, that's what they need. They're not invested, they're very little educated. The inside where the sun is, that's people who are providing cutting edge PD protocols. Or Steve Weinberg, the head judge of Mr. Olympia, he is at the center of the sun because he determines who has the best physique on the planet and they know everything. You've got to realize what is your orbit range. Where are you meeting people? And not only does this give you clarity on what the interest level and what people are looking for at the beginning, but it also gives you clarity on where you're taking people to. Because once you see your services helping people from this point to that point, you can then market and advertise what the outcome is. And that's what you're selling. You're not selling the journey or you're selling the process. You're selling what it does for people. And in order to attract people continually, you need to be consistent on the outcome, but also you need to be consistent on the problems and the topics at the initial part of the process, because selling something someone wants is a lot easier than selling something they don't want. This is coming from a person. I've launched 8 different product lines in the old biotech company I used to use. They were all shite. I think one was really good, but the majority was shite. It was so hard trying to sell a product that people weren't interested in. The moment I just contract and white labeled one of the product lines and asked them what they want, I think within one order I did 18 months worth of business by just asking what they wanted and creating the product that they wanted. And it's the same here. You've got to understand what question, what problem is the person thinking at that orbit range. What are they fixating upon? Because you need to be aware of that problem, but also you need to stick to it, because the person who follows you on fat loss, who really likes that advice, the next thing they see is a tricep exercise. The next thing they see is how to build muscle. The next thing they see is like a personal update from you. The next thing they see is like something with dogs. you need to be consistent on the problems, not only continue to attract people, but keep the heat on them, like trying to boil a kettle. If you're trying to get it to boiling point, it takes more energy the higher the temperature goes. So you have to keep it on the heat. If you chop and change your topics too much, it's like you're continually taking this kettle off the heat and you're continually removing it from temperature. The temperature is the consistency and driving the urgency. And when it gets to boiling, that is the action of someone hitting that tipping point and going, I need to reach out to this person because they understand me and this is what I need. They're convinced. But it's not just your content, they're competing, you're competing with every other piece of content that they see. So you need to be consistent, not to be boring and repeat yourself, but to maintain their focus on the key thing they need to focus on, or to maintain their focus and awareness on the problems, so they then realize and remember and be convinced that they need to consider making a change to get the results they see in the client results that you do share. So it comes in to that strategy. And so many coaches I think the biggest problem that they have is they try and focus on too many things. I can help everyone. If you try and be a jack of all trades, you become a master of the square root of bugger all, because you don't stand out. You have to pick an edge. You have to pick a problem to specialize in order to continually attract people and be obvious enough and clear enough. That's what you do. Otherwise, people look at you and they see more of the same in other people. And if they don't recognize anything different, which we're going to come on to, then they don't see the point in making a change and they don't inquire. So the big take home here is understand where you specialize in and understand at what point at the beginning of that process, what are they thinking about, and just being ruthlessly consistent on those topics and not deviating. So the algorithm learns more about you and your client, or that you attract the people with those problems, but also you maintain focus with those people so they continually watch you over and over again by just bringing up that point over and bringing up that main issue that they're struggling with over and over again. And then the magic happens where you get deeper into the understanding of the psychology, because if you can be aware of what that problem is, what the thoughts would that drive, how would that then make them feel, and what actions would that influence? And that's typically it. When someone thinks a certain way, when they're kind of thinking about a problem or they're just mulling it over, that will influence how they feel in themselves. And people act on feelings and emotions normally. So when you start to dig into this, and easiest way is just picking a client that you currently work with and just asking them questions to get into them, to understand them for like what's actually happening with someone in real life. Thoughts are easy. It's typically the questions they ask or the things they kind of mention. The problem is the thing they keep bringing up or fixating upon on check-ins or at the beginning of the process. The actions you observe, and then the emotions, you can kind of work it out based on the tone and the mood. And this is where you can add this back into the content. When you are talking about those problems, you're starting to kind of flesh it out now and explain the reality around that beginning orbit range. And when you can explain people's problems in more detail than they can understand themselves, and you can educate them more, or when it looks like you understand them more than they understand themselves, that increases conviction in them that you can help them. So that's the role of your content. It's not to get views, it's to create impact in ways of you just reading their reality back to them in vivid detail so they feel heard and understood, and they know that you know them. Does that make sense? I think it does, John. Must about. So this is about getting more precise around that problem. And then this is the most important point, because we come back to this disparate waste of energy, because your content needs to have a strategy behind it. And again, coaches are talking about way too many topics and they're not constraining themselves around one key orbit range or around one key problem at the beginning, because you need to do or stick to one or three at the absolute maximum core problems in your content strategy. Because like I said, that way you'll not only attract people with those problems, but you'll keep the intensity and the heat on them so they maintain focus and they actually consume your content regularly and they get to know you, rather than following you and then becoming a ghost follower where they actually just don't pay attention because you're then distracted talking about something else. So maintaining focus, and here's the kicker, drawing it back down to one key solution. And this is key, and this is something, with hindsight, it's very obvious, but when you're in the process, for the first 3 years of growing my business, I wasn't aware of this. But when you're looking at hundreds of coaches' content, you then start to kind of find out the missing gaps. Because if you just talk about problems and you don't lead anyone anywhere, they watch, get frustrated, and most people need to be led. They need to be told what to do. You don't have to use call to actions all the time, but you have to give them the next step of what they need to focus on. And this is critical because it then becomes obvious of what you do. Because again, if you're just an online coach or online PT, they will do the thinking for you. They'll conclude, well, you just do meal plans and PDFs. I don't care about that. I don't need that. I tried that, didn't work. If it looks the same as something they've tried before, they will immediately disregard your help, or they'll look at the client results that you've got. And if they don't have a thing to focus on, or a key bottleneck, or a key action point, or a key thing that you drill into people being the main thing they need to fixate on at this point of the process, they will look at that person and go, no, they're lucky, or it's easy for them. They haven't got kids, they don't do night shifts, they haven't got as many excuses as I have, life's tough for me, they're on a pedestal, that it is what it is. Whereas always coming back to the fact that let's just say if it's a diet, always coming back to the fact that they're not in a calorie deficit, or if you're working with a certain ethnic group, the foods they're eating, you've been told they're too carby. Not true. This is what I do with my clients, so they can eat the foods they can eat the foods of their culture and still lose weight. Or if it's, with Adam's example, he was ruthlessly constraining around, you're not executing progressive overload. You are not growing. You are not growing tissue because you're not executing progressive overload properly. And he kept coming back down to progressive overload over and over and over again. So when anyone watched his content, when anyone ever saw his evidence of himself or his clients, they would always have in the back of their mind, shit, I'm obviously not doing that correctly. And it gave them that reason why he would be different. Because if it's all about that, and it's obvious that it's all about that, if they're not getting results of what they see, they're not doing that. And it seems so trite and so surface level, but you need to give people a reason why they haven't got results so far. Because once they have that, it then gives them belief that they can get a result if they were to work with you. It's that missing thing, it's that missing link, it's the reason why they haven't got the 1B, but it's also the reason why they could get the results working with you. And will it work for me is the biggest reason why people don't inquire, and everyone internalizing it thinks it's their problem. So if you can really break that down by continually drawing it back down to one key solution, you're really destroying that excuse or that thought or that barrier. And then your service, your framework, and showing it inside of what you do is how you execute that. And this is key as well, because again, without sharing what you do, without opening up and letting people see what's behind your service or what it would be like, they don't know. And they will fill in the blank for you based on their shite imagination or their expectation of what coaching is. Whereas if it's clear that you've got a framework, you have an approach, you have an angle, you have a process, you have a method for executing this ruthlessly, that again gives them the opportunity to vision and forecast what it would be like. You build up your case that you are different to what they'd expect, and all of this helps them believe they can get the result, and they can get like the afters they see on your before and afters, and then tell them where to go. And very, very simple, very clear. But again, I've noticed this with clients like Lloyd. He posts consistently. Sometimes it can be a bit quiet. We look back. Have you told people to fill out the form? I haven't actually. Literally put that in next week for inquiries. Sometimes it's literally telling people, okay, this is the next step. Go here now. And I'm just going to add to this because I think a core reason a lot of coaches don't like to keep drawing it down to one key solution is it's never one thing. In life, there's multiple factors, and that is absolutely true. I'm not here to tell you to become a bullshit marketer and sell your soul, to sell a service, sell a product, sell an angle. But what you can do with this, because you can still constrain it to one key solution, and you do it by remaining on those problems, because you'll look at it in a better light if you realize this is just the first domino. If you've got a line of dominoes lined up, you're tipping them over. All you've got to focus on with your content really is the first domino, because that is the thing that they are thinking of. So you just got to work out what is the key solution and angle to tackle that, and just keep drawing it back down. And then when you zoom out and you look at the content as a whole, all of a sudden you are incredibly precise on talking about topics that people are actively thinking about. That will draw in more attention. And then you add your depth of understanding to that, so it rapidly builds trust more quickly, and you not only get their attention, but you get their belief, trust, and conviction in you. And then you give them a reason why working with you would be different. And you give them that thing that they need to focus on. And this is really important because they watch other people's content. So they come back to you and it's like, oh, that's why I haven't got to where I want to be. That's what I need to focus on. And when they see the mounting proof that your clients are getting results, they then start to kind of realize, I'm not doing that. I need to work on that. And you obviously can help with this. And it seems like that is the perfect answer. And when you show off the process of how you do that, if you map each one of these phases to answer a key problem, and it maps and resonates with this, so this looks like it's tailor-built to these issues and how they feel, that convinces them even more, and then just tell them what to do. So when you add all this up together, so when you add up these 4 points together, it becomes the sharp contrast between coaches who are averaging between 2 and 5 inquiries every single week by having a coherent content system in place, versus the coaches who are spending the same, if not more, energy and time producing content, yet it being so disparate and not drawing anyone and not compounding. It's just daily energy just spent posting out into a void without any direction. And that is the biggest irony. You can expend more energy doing it incorrectly than following a system that works, it taking less time and it taking significantly less energy, because it's planned, it's concise, and you know it works. If that sounds useful, check out the description below for the free strategy guide with steps and specifics to actually action this into your content.